welcome to my homestead. Exactly a month ago I turned in my keys and I officially moved into my new home. So this is a 1 month update. Now that I'm actually living here, I will not be showing inside the house, but I will show you outside and all of the changes that have been made. So let's start here. We are standing right by first tree that was planted here. This is a Chinese chestnut. It's growing really nicely. It came in bare roots, so it didn't have any leaves. Had empty roots. Its brother or sister is over there, over by the pond, also growing quite nicely. You can see the pond is blooming with irises and a lot of pollen falling on it. So over here I have another chestnut. This one is a little bit more developed, also growing quite nicely. A lot of new growth. You can see it's all new. So I have an orchard that my sister started and I finished. Well, not finished, it still has a lot of work to do, but it's taking shape. And there is a little garden patch here, some lilies, of course lots of weeds. And don't ask me all of the names of the flowers. She planted them and I have no idea what they are. As horrible as it sounds, all I know is they're flowers and they look pretty and they attract bees, and that's pretty much the extent of my involvement in this particular patch. I know some of like these, I know this is lavender, so later on in the year there will be all purple, and some lilies that I can identify. The rest I'm pretty much clueless. We have the orchard on this side. It is a mess right now because I'm waiting for the landscaping crew to come in and start redoing all of the soil so I can have a nice field of flowers here instead of grass. In the meantime, I have this beautiful tree. This is the chocolate persimmon. It's also been growing quite nicely. Unfortunately, right now the wind is horrible. We're in the middle of a storm, and you can see the storm is moving on, so the timing is atrocious. But you can see some of my trees here. So this is Georgia peach. It actually bloomed and set peaches. See, there we go. I do have peaches on it that formed, but I'm not gonna let them develop very much longer. I don't want the tree to spend too much energy on it. What I show you here, as I unpack inside the house, I take the boxes out here to lay them out flat and smother the weeds, and I put the compost on top of it. So this is slowly progressing. Of course, it's a very slow work because it all takes the cardboard from the boxes that I need to unpack first. You can see the trees. Well, hopefully you can see them. Some of them are still kind of tiny, so you can barely see the leaves all growing on them, but they're growing. Some are more progressed than others, like my apples and here's the pink lady apple. This one is doing really well. My plums are doing quite well. They're all taking shape. And even papaw, the teeny tiny thing that's growing, it's taking shape. So things are developing here. There is about 50 trees now on the property that have been planted. Some are still in pots because they will be moved inside for the winter, so they cannot be planted in the soil. But it's, like I said, it's a work in progress. And here is my little hill of work. This was a big dump truck that was dumped onto my property. All of this is what was supposed to be mushroom compost, except it wasn't completely decomposed, so it's still hot, meaning it's still composting. If I dig inside, the temperature is actually quite hot. It's about 150 degrees. Steams when you open it up. You can see all of this, where the barrel is right now. All of this was covered with compost. All of that has been moved and dug out. I've been slowly moving piece by piece, or load by load I should say. But eventually all of this will be moved and distributed. Some will be on this part and some will be in the gardens. So on this side by the pond I have more trees. I made a video about them before. So here are some cherry trees, and this one actually bloomed. I think it still has the remnants of the blooms on it. Yes. So it has the remnants of the bloom and some cherries formed. So I might actually try one of the cherries. This one is a sour cherry. But on the other side of the pond there is a whole bunch of fruit trees as well. I have a couple of pecans. I have a nice peach that is full of formed berry or formed fruit. And there is about 6 mulberries that I could find, 3 apples, and a whole bunch of local pears. I believe these are these are not the nice pears. They're not edible for people, but they're nice blooming. And there are some local wild plums. So, and of course I have my sakura. It just finished blooming, and unfortunately today's wind pretty much stripped it of remaining blooms. You can still see a few here and there, but for most part it's gone. So it was a nice sakura right over the pond. Anyway, I'm gonna pause for a second so we can walk over to the backyard and to the garden area. So here we are by the arbor. This is the entrance to my garden area. Again, irises are blooming. My sister bought me a kiwi plant. So this is a hardy kiwi. It's growing quite nicely. It doesn't like the cold all that much, but it's adapting, it's growing. So you can see the young buds. I have my blueberries that I moved from the other place where I used to live, and they're just finishing blooming. You can see they're loaded in blueberries. You can see them better. They just finished blooming, so there is a lot of fruit, and I mean a lot of fruit. All of these are all blueberries. I'm gonna have a ton of blueberries this year, and these are just these 3 bushes. I have an entire patch back there. I'll show you that later. I have another persimmon here, and a raspberry bush that my sister sent me over with her husband. So it's also growing quite nicely, very bushy. My pomegranates, one is already in the ground, the other one is still waiting. I might move both of them out. I'm not quite happy with their location. And they're over by sakura, by the weeping cherry. And this really brings me a lot of joy in the evening when I need to rest and relax. I come out here, look at these irises and the color by the pond. Of course, until the frogs start yelling because they're so loud. Okay, so here's my garden. Just a water warning, this is work in progress, so lots of mess. It still kind of looks ugly, but it's beginning to take shape. So this bed is a combination of herbs. You have some thyme and oregano. They're gorgeous, absolutely stunning. My sister planted some set onions, so I can have onions at the end of the year. I sprinkled a whole bunch of wildflowers, so there are going to be patches of wildflowers once those are growing, and hopefully that will attract more pollinators. The purple ones are chives. They're in full bloom right now, so doing quite well. These are the walking onions. Some sorrel went into bloom. So on this side we have another hodgepodge. I have a lot of tomato plants. See, they're nice and strong. They're actually getting kind of fatty. A little bit too much nitrogen in the soil for them. Some of my peas woke up and some lettuces. So I scattered some lettuces in between plants so you can see where they just started poking up through the soil. So they will not bother the other plants because most of these will be picked really soon. and lettuce grows really fast. I have one sunflower here that was a stowaway. It was actually somehow it seeded itself in a pot with another tree. So I transplanted it here. There is another row of green peas, and I'm so excited that they actually came out. I was afraid I was not going to have any this year. And again, lettuce is scattered all over the place here. And there is one lonely eggplant on this side because it did not fit in another bed. And you can see green lettuces. So there is a rose. You can see the cover that I have for plants. We had some strong frost the other day, so I had no choice but to cover everything. Here we have a combination of eggplants that are actually doing quite nicely, and some cauliflower also doing quite nicely. This is a particularly nice selection. And in between there are a few bits and pieces of radishes scattered across. You can see they also woke up. So those are radishes waking up. So again, trying to utilize every square inch of the bed as much as I can, mostly because I didn't have a lot of bed space prepared. And everything that's cold season is pretty much over. I cannot plant anymore now. They simply will not grow. It's too hot. My sister planted this bed with onions. These are seeded from seed as opposed to sets. And they were struggling for a while, but they're beginning to get up. They're growing. You can see instead of yellow, they're now green. So they're recovering and they're growing. This was the first bed we made with the compost, and that's when we realized compost was hot because the onions burned. Alright, in this bed we have another hodgepodge. We have the leftover flowers that were here from the old owners, mostly these sweet william. You can see it's getting ready to bloom. Lots of blooms here. And my sister gave me some artichokes to plant, so they were all planted here. For a while they were struggling, but they're beginning to grow quite nicely. You can see nice growth, nice young leaves. And she also scattered some lettuces as well here, and I believe some basil. So we have an interesting selection here where it's scattered in between. So once it grows bigger, it's going to be an interesting view. All of this was pulled out. I need to burn it and find a place to do it. So, but we've had high winds, so it's not safe to burn anything, and I'm worried that it's gonna spread the fire to other places. I have one beautiful blueberry bush here. This was the oldest one here, also covered in blueberries. You can see the amount of blueberries on these. Look at that. It's covered everywhere. Like literally, I'm gonna have so many blueberries this year, it's ridiculous. I hope Jenny is in the mood to make blueberry pies. Either that or Peter is gonna have a lot of blueberries to eat. There are some lilies. All of this will need to be cleaned out. It's a mess, big background, but not right now. Again, I've only been here for 1 month, so give me some credit for still work needs to be done. There is a wild rose. And this has been my main focus for the last couple of weeks. This area right here. So here we have a few peppers that had overwintered from last year. I saved them in the pots, and they're beginning to wake up and grow. But they're still struggling. They're not doing as well as I'd like to. Jenny sent me these strawberries. These are not the type I had. Honey on strawberry. So we'll see how they do here. But they've assimilated and they're growing quite nicely. There is a lot of young growth. I have one of the leftover grape vines that was here when I moved, and it actually has a grape cluster on it. You can see So I might actually have some grapes this year. There are quite a few clusters of them actually, but it's hard to see them because they're still so tiny. This was this bush was really left to its fate and was not tended well at all. They were all but dead. Same thing here. This bush was not doing well at all. My sister cut it up. She cleaned it, got rid of all of the mess, and it's growing now. So hopefully these berries that are formed, you can see berry clusters. So I'm gonna have some grapes on these and I'll find out what kind they are. Obviously I have no idea what they were before. So these are the strawberries that I transplanted from my other place where I used to live last year. They're doing incredibly well. Every single one is blooming and producing. So you can see massive blooms in full production mode. I mean, these are already formed. So in another, I would say 2 weeks, I'm gonna have fresh strawberries. And you can see flowers everywhere. I mean, it's really in full production mode everywhere. Wherever you look. There. So lots of strawberries to come. This bed on this side, I have potatoes. They're not doing as well as I'd like them to be. And again, this is a case of, whoops, we didn't know that the compost was hot. And they pretty much fried the potatoes, but they're finally beginning to recover and they're setting some growth. You can see they're poking through and finally beginning to get up and out. I've got on the other side so I can show both sides. And again, sorry for the mess, but it is a work area. It's not a joy. Oh, I almost forgot. I do have a couple of tea plants. So this is a tea bush. I can pick young leaves from the top when it's ready, when it's big enough, and brew my own tea. So again, trying to cut on the dependency on society and make myself self-sustainable. Again, all of this is potatoes. You can see on this side I have more blueberries. Again, look at this, covered in blueberries. I'm gonna have a ton of them. All of my pots are flying around because of the wind. I thought they were secured and apparently not. So this is a later variety of blueberries. It's still finishing blooming unlike the others. But this was a good example of what's happening. I mean, look at it. Covered in blooms, no matter where you look. And it's loaded. And still more to come. So many blueberries this year. It's amazing. Same thing here. This one already finished, but holy cow. So many blueberries already formed. It's amazing. Okay, I do have some hostas over by the greenhouse. So transitioning down, this was my adventure a couple of days ago. It actually took me 2 nights. I couldn't get this up by myself all in one evening, so it took me almost 4 hours to try and move it slowly and put it together. This trellis, it's 7 feet wide, 10 feet long. For me, my hand span is barely 4 feet. I'm barely 5 feet tall, so trying to put it together and move it by myself was a challenge, to say the least. But it's standing. I need to find a way to anchor it. It is kind of rickety. It's a plug and play. So these joints come apart if I want to pull it apart. I do need to fasten it a little bit better and make sure that it stays steady. Right now it's not a danger because there is nothing growing on it, but eventually it has to be stable. Alright, so I have a couple of rows of peanuts here, but they have not woken up yet. They're not growing yet. Well, at least not on the outside. I have one single lettuce that was a stowaway, and 3 radishes. I believe it's a type of spinach. And Jenny can correct me if I'm wrong. Radish is spinach. A few broccoli plants that are doing really, really well, and unfortunately the local bugs are already eating them. Oh crap. I need to take care of this. cover them up somehow because they're already being eaten. So again, this is reality. They just started growing and something is already eating them. Alright, in the same time I have a few peas on this side also. I just scattered a few peas in between plants, hoping that they're gonna wake up, and they have. I have a few carrots that were left over in the pots from last year. I'm actually planted them here so they can grow into seed, so I can have seeds for next year. Some purple and some yellow carrots. And again, more peas. And here we have a selection of cabbages. They are in a checkered position, so they're not in strict lines. Well, there are lines this way, but not that way. So they're checkered, one in between, a diamond pattern. And I also put a few peppers in between. I'm gonna put the rest of them once it's warm enough. You can see that's my pepper. Okay, and here are some more cabbages. I believe this is a different variety. And I also scattered a few soybeans. Hopefully they will come up. It's again too early for them. But I also want to take you inside the greenhouse, show you my warm loving plants. Sorry for the mess again. You can see how many seedlings I have here planted. There is a lot of stuff. You can see that just woke up. They're literally pushing soil apart and trying to grow. It's incredible to watch. But very nice. I mean, the changes are literally hour by hour. This is a seedling tray that my sister left here. Some eggplant and some more cabbage. I believe this is a Verona cabbage, so this needs to be transplanted as soon as possible. I have more sunflowers planted here. A couple of Jenny's trees. And I have my Arabica coffee beans. They're also beginning to grow. So I'm very happy with its progress. It's growing quite nicely. More tomatoes. These are varieties that Jenny had requested. They're all marked per her request. And some more melons, watermelons, and cucumbers and squashes. So when things come up, then I'll transplant them, but not yet. Okay, so I have 3 heat-loving trees in here. I have this achacha. I've never grown one before, so I'm kind of curious as to how it's going to do here. It's a very warm, loving plant. It's a tropical plant. All of these are tropicals. But I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to do. I have nice papaya. This is a Hawaiian version, Hawaiian papaya. It was really sick when it arrived, so it lost all of the top leaves, and it's just now regaining strength and growing. So all of these young leaves that are growing make me very happy. Now this little fella is very curious for me. I am looking forward to hopefully see it grow better. This is called the ice cream bean tree. I can't wait to try one of these beans. Supposedly this can climb up to 80 feet tall. I'm hoping that I can keep it down just because it has suckers, and I might pull this one out so it doesn't impede the parent. But it's growing. You can see it let out new shoots, so it is adapting quite nicely, and it's doing quite nicely. So again, here are more seedlings, more tomatoes and peppers, and all stuff that still needs beds, but that means I have to do the actual work to create the beds for them. So this is what I had before all of this was planted. It looked like that. Empty bed with no soil, covered with plastic and a whole bunch of bricks. So as I slowly remove the plastic, I fill the soil with, I fill the compost and let it settle down and then plant. And it's a slow game. I'm not moving as fast as I'd like to plant, and I'm definitely losing season. But I keep telling myself, again, this is only 1 month since I moved here, so I can't expect miracles. There is a lot of work that needs to be done. This property really was I mean, you can see the garbage that was left behind. It's a mess. I have swamps. So my pineapple is doing nicely now again. It was really struggling for a while. Alright, so I do have my citrus trees here that were transported from the other place, as well as this cold hardy avocado. Avocado apparently was growing underneath some kind of cover or something, because it was not used to the sunshine. It got burned quite badly. You can see the sunburn. It was not exposed to sunshine before, so it suffered quite a bit, but it's recovering. All of these are new young leaves that it's letting out. My oranges are doing very well. You can see a lot of young growth. These trees, I thought that I was going to lose them. So all of these 4 trees were really sick. And I mean really sick. They were not doing well at all, but now they finally recovering. Jenny had treated them with something. She trimmed their roots, she transplanted them, and now they're recovering and growing. All of this is young growth. I mean, look at this. It's all young growth, all young leaves. And this baby particularly, I'm so happy for it. It was all but dead. You can see how much we cut off. Well, Jenny cut off. Alright. There's one more plant I want to show you that's getting ready to, it's actually producing already, but getting ready for harvest soon. There are quite a few berries on it. If I can show you. This is the gooseberry plant. It's doing really well. It adapted to its new spot and doing quite well. So on the other side, I still have some soil here that I had moved in. On the other side, by the backyard, I have a bunch of grapes planted. So these 2 were bought last year, and they survived, and they've wintered over at my sister's place and doing quite nicely. That's a Neptune grape. There's another one. The others were bought this year. They were just planted. I might transplant them because there is really not enough soil for them here on this side. They're struggling. And keep in mind, the grapes have roots going down 30 feet and out. Oh, and there are some of these dahlias that my sister planted. So dahlias is also growing. So different varieties. There are muscadine grapes, 2 varieties. There are regular green grapes, multiple varieties. And there is another variety that's growing here really nicely. Let's see, this is a Lakemont seedless. So, another dahlia growing quite nicely. So more grapes. And this one, actually, this is a Concord, so this is the variety that's used for jelly. It's doing really well. And it has flower buds, so it's going to produce grapes. On the other side, I have 2 things of lingonberries. Alright, so here we are on the other side. These are lingonberries. You can see they're covered in blooms. I can't wait for them to produce. They're going to be fantastic, and they're growing. There is new growth. So they're doing really well. Both bushes are adapting very well. This yard is a mess, but I want to show you. Here we have the phlox cover. But this one makes me really happy. My beautiful pink peonies. I was so excited to find them here. I love peonies. Alright, so this is a mess. This is my waterfall backyard. I've tried to clean it up a little bit. So you can see there is a lot of work that needs to be done. I have not had a chance yet to really spend a lot of time here trying to bring it to any kind of shape or form. There is a few fishes still left in there, and it's beginning to rain, so I'm gonna get under cover. I do have a few fishes left in here. I don't know if you can see them. Yeah, they've gone away. It is raining. So, best I can do is just take one day at a time, and wherever I have energy, come and clean up. Again, this is another area that was really left behind, untended. It's a mess. Same thing here. Oh, I did plant one more blueberry, and it's still in full bloom. Look at the size of these berries, of these blooms. They're huge. I'm excited to try this one. It's a Chandler blueberry, the largest one of them all. So all of this needs to be cleaned up. I have irises growing here, but they're yellow irises. They're not my favorite. For some reason, the other owner loved yellow irises everywhere. You can see them. They're everywhere. I wish you had planted some more varieties and not just these. But again, all of this requires work, and it will take time to bring it to shape. I don't know yet what I'm going to do with these trees. There is one tree that's dead. You can see it's covered in lichen. It's completely dead. There is no life in it. It's now a fire hazard. So I need to pull it off, cut it down, and plant something else. That's why I'm thinking of moving those pomegranates that are growing by the arbor right now. I'm thinking of moving them over here so they can grow here by the butterfly bush. Oh, and Jenny gave me some freesia, so along this fence line on the inside there is a whole bunch of freesia planted. Anyways, I'm gonna walk over to the pond one more time just to give you one more look. Oh, there are a couple of more trees here. I have my wonderful Japanese plum, also known as loquat. I love loquats. I have the Mayor lemon, finally beginning